Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidate interviews, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I'm your interviewer, Joy Cardine, and I'd like to introduce David Blaska, running for Madison Metropolitan School Board, Seat 4. And as we begin, I'd like to give you an opening statement as to your educational, vocational, and civic experience that you have which qualifies you for this office, and why you are running for Madison Metropolitan School Board.
Well, I did go to school, Joy, so I think that qualifies me. I did go on college at UW-Oshkosh, came off the farm in Sun Prairie, and I've lived in Madison since 1991. And I served on the Dane County Board for 12 years, very privileged to have that opportunity. So I know my way around a budget. I'm running because no one else is saying what David Blaska is saying, Joy, and that is we have to have discipline in our schools. It's really job number one. You can't write a proper English sentence, find the hypotenuse of a triangle, or lay a decent bead of welding, or shoot a three-point basket without discipline, stick-to-itiveness. And frankly, our schools are in chaos. When you have people afraid, literally, Joy, afraid to go to a Madison School Board meeting, when they are disrupted, when speakers are shouted down, when the school board, as they did on October 29th at the annual budget meeting, fled into the night because they were overtaken. When you can't keep order in a school board meeting, imagine the chaos in the classroom. And I've had so many parents say, I'm not ever going back to a school board meeting. You ought to be able to go in this democracy and say your piece, but not disrupt other people. We've had teachers, Karen Veith, for instance, 14-year veteran, award-winning teacher at Madison Sherman Middle School, just gave up in disgust at broken windows, at the foul language, at the disobedience, and she left the teaching profession. And then after she did, she was criticized by the administration, by the school superintendent, by the president of the school board, the vice president, for criticizing the principal who happened to be of color, even though Karen Veith, for instance, never mentioned the race. So my motto here, Joy, has been that if we can get safer schools, we'll have a safer community.
The achievement gap between white students and students of color is a chronic problem that MMSD has struggled with for a long time. What of the superintendent's priorities for narrowing the gap do you support, and what do you believe should be the board's priorities?
Well, again, discipline should be the priority. You know, we've had a behavior education plan for the last 5 years. It's 82 pages. It is more legalistic, I think, than the criminal code. They're working on it again. They're trying to redraft it. But what that has done is taken control of the classroom away from the teachers. Teachers should control the classroom. Instead, it's transferred authority to the Doyle Administration Building. And teachers have lost control of their classrooms. Principals have lost control of the cafeterias. There was a fight just, we're recording this here in late January, but there was a fight just yesterday that wound up a student having to need stitches. We're having shootings. We're having in the neighborhood school buses being shot up, and who's getting hurt by that? It's mainly the young kids of color. There is a gap. The fact of the matter is, though, and that gap persists. It starts with discipline. When you have a disciplined classroom, then I think learning can happen, not only just for the kids that are traumatized, many of them, but also for everyone else in that classroom.
A personalized pathways program is being implemented and promoted in the MMSD as one way to open educational opportunities for students of color and to help close the achievement gap. What do you see as the strengths and weaknesses of the program as it's currently structured?
Well, I think it's a good idea, but again, you can have all the programs you want, but if you're second guessing the teachers, and I've said, people have said, is this your only issue, David? It is the major issue. The disciplinary issue is major. You have to get to these kids. I've talked and I've listened to Judge Everett Mitchell talking about many of the kids, especially of color, are traumatized by just a bad environment in the home, neglectful parents perhaps. So to tell people, and Madison is so forthcoming with programs with goodwill. That's why it bothers me. And some of my opponents, for instance, are saying cops out of the schools, as if the teachers and the police and the community are racist. They're not. And to continue to go on charges of racism, I think, masks the real problem. We're here to help kids, but I think for everyone from the mayor on down, all of Madison should be saying, we're here to help, but you have to carry the load. We can't make you a success. We'll help you become a success, but you have to do it. The tools are there.
Staff use of racial slurs has recently emerged as a significant personnel issue in the Madison schools. How should this issue be addressed throughout the district?
Well, I think there have been, some substitute teachers, and I think we've had 4 instances, I believe the number is. And obviously, that can't be tolerated, and it's not being tolerated. Those people aren't coming back to teach in Madison anymore. But, I guess this just feeds into the whole Madison schools are racist, and you've got candidates who are running on that platform. And I spoke to the teachers union a week ago before our taping here, and I said, I said, are you guys racist or not? And I don't believe that they are. And I think, we have the school to prison pipeline scenario there. I've talked to enough teachers that say they love those, they're called now school resource officers, 3 black men, 1 Hispanic woman, she said East High School. They love them. The teachers and those SROs and the other people in school might be the only responsible adults that many of those kids ever see in a day. So I reject, so I understand the question, but again, it's the implication that you've got 2 or 3 or 4 and that somehow is evidence, or that it evinces systemic racism in Madison schools. That is more destructive than almost anything you could say.
School safety is a hot button issue across the country. How do you look at the issue of school safety, and what is the board's role in addressing it?
Well, again, if the school board can't even keep order on its own meetings, and we had, this is sort of how I became involved in that issue. I first became involved in the schools issue, I think a good 10 years ago with Kaleem Cares. When he was president of the Urban League, he proposed Madison Preparatory Academy, and it would have been a small charter school within the school district, but not instrumentality, meaning that it wouldn't have been unionized, for instance. It would make some of its own rules. And they brought up a similar school from Chicago, young men dressed in blazers and slacks, very well spoken, after that, to kind of lend credence to the proposal. And the dean of students said, and he was a black man, he said, I discipline hard, he said, but I love harder. I really believe that we've got to put control of the classroom back to the teachers, and I challenge anyone to wade through that behavior education plan and come out sane.
What do you identify as the biggest budget issues for the school district in 2019, and going forward, how do you propose the board address them?
Well, obviously, I think probably, they're looking at apparently more maintenance. It seems like we always defer maintenance in the district. I say this, when you look at, it's canaries in the coal mine, Madison parents are voting with their feet. They're leaving the school district. In this current school year, we had 804 children, Madison residents living in Madison, who took advantage of the state educational opportunity program, I should say the open enrollment program, to leave the Madison schools for other nearby surrounding schools. The state pays something like $7,055 per student. That money follows that student to the new school. There alone, we've lost $5.67 million. And that doesn't count how many kids are being enrolled in private schools, parochial schools, or are just literally moving out of Madison. One parent who was harassed at one of the meetings, the school board meetings, her son was a graduate of West High School, but she had other children coming up. She moved out of the district. So I think we've got to restore faith in our school system that the kids will be safe, so that when, in Orchard Ridge where I live, very nice neighborhood, Mom is taking the little one, 5-year-old, to his first day of school in September. Being a little fellow, he reaches down the sidewalk and says, "What are these, Mommy?" Well, they're shell casings. That's a problem.
How do you envision keeping up with multiple constituencies, including students, parents, teachers, administrators, and the taxpayers who are not a part of these groups, but to whom you must answer?
Well, in fact, I think something like 85% of Madison citizens, voters, don't have kids in the school system. So I think, that's why, I'm trying to draw the relevance of our school district and our system to that 85% by saying that if we have safer schools, we will have a safer community. If we, it's a broken windows theory. If we let these little things keep accumulating here and have chaos in the classroom, it's no wonder that kids are hijacking cars, pushing down ladies who are leaving the late shift on Urbana Road from the trying to make ends meet by working at a fast food place, pushing her down and kicking her on the ground while they steal her automobile. We're having, I think, a lot of hijackings and car issues here. So I'm trying to tie the two together because they are connected. It's not, the kid isn't going to be a little angel in the school system and then come out. I don't put it all on the teachers. They can't, reform society, but they may very well be the only responsible adults. We need to give those teachers back that responsibility.
What would you like to say to the viewing audience as we complete the interview?
Well, besides vote for me, I do think you need my voice on this. One of my opponents, my principal opponent, I believe, Ali Muldrow, is Progressive Dane, and she wrote the education platform for Progressive Dane. And one of that is cops out of schools. The other is no more expulsions of students. The other one is if a student is facing disciplinary action, the district should provide an attorney. So the message there is kids lawyer up, not kids do the right thing. You've got a great opportunity here. We're here to help you, but a lot of that falls on you. And I guess also I would open the door to charters. There ought to be. It's a shame that they denied Kaleem Care his charter. I think because the school district was afraid that it might succeed.
I want to thank David Blaska for speaking with us and the viewing audience for taking the time to know your candidates. As with every election, please vote. On behalf of the Madison City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, I thank you for joining us.